What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Go Long Show at golongtd.com. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever, however you listen. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for rating, reviewing, wherever you listen to the podcast. But mainly, thank you for subscribing to Go Long, part of the Substack network. And like I said, golongtd.com. We've got a two-part series up right now on Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. It is far more than Caleb Williams. It always is far more than just drafting the quarterback. So try to get to the bottom of that. Conversations with front office members, coaches, scouts, experts, Warren Moon, Eric Kramer, Allen Robinson was really honest. So we're going to get into that all with, of course, my co-host, Jim Monas. He has been in these NFL front offices, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but I think the core four, as you have coined, is very applicable to the Chicago Bears and everything that has gone wrong. So we'll get into that. As always, the podcast fueled by our friends at Fatty Beer Company. Jim, how's it going on a Monday afternoon?
Tyler, what's happening? I'm liking we have good stuff to talk about on a Monday. In the quote unquote off season, Tyler, if you're paying attention to the NFL right now, your number one pick, Drake May, is officially a bust from what I'm hearing.
Is
You
that
won't believe
right?
it.
He's
It
done.
sounds like that he has work to do, according to the head coach's press conference. He's the first rookie to have work to do. Now I'm laughing because this is the time of year where it's great. I mean, we see the highlights, and we've already coined Rookie of the Year. We got it ready to roll. So it's now time to talk about something a little more in depth. I think is your story, which I like, which is real, and not these X highlights right now that's going on in the NFL.
Right. If you were to look at a chart, the demand would be through the roof.
Yeah.
Demand is very high for NFL content right now. The supply in terms of substantive happenings is quite low. And I think, even back 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't this hyper analysis around a rookie minicamp in shorts. But the time we live in, the appetite is there. The NFL knows it. So yeah, basically every week there is news that is kind of force fed into the ether.
And that's what's like the sign of the times. The first point spread of the year is out. The Kansas City Chiefs are favored by 3 against the Baltimore Ravens on the opening night, Thursday night football. I think that's the first game that was released by the NFL. The point spread's out. Bets have been made. Baltimore owes somebody on this podcast a little better effort than the playoff game against Kansas City. So this guy's already tuned in and ready for a Baltimore owes me bet that has been made already, whatever the day is today, May 12th.
You
13th.
placed the bet.
May,
It's in.
it's in. Baltimore Ravens +3. Owe me.
You
All
got
right.
the NBA playoffs, so right.
Well,
That's not enough to wet your beak.
Tyler, you have to be prepared to grab the best number. I'm thinking 3 is a good
Okay.
number. Yes, we still have the Minnesota Timberwolves. How do we feel right now, heartbeat wise, with them? Do we do we feel like we have a chance?
Yes,
I think
and
I
I'll tell you
talked you.
why.
I think I talked you into that one a little bit. I'm saying we because I think you joined me on this 2 weeks ago.
No, I love the T-Wolves. I mean,
Yeah.
I got in early in the playoffs. I think Anthony Edwards is like that old school Jordan, Kobe, swingman. I know those comparisons get thrown around way too much, but he is probably about as close as you're going to get to those two in today's game. So I still love the Timberwolves. I don't even care because even after that loss, did you see Anthony Edwards' press conference? It was great.
What more do you want than him right now? Like he's
Oh, he's
everything.
hilarious.
He's everything. He's personality plus the talent.
He's just talking junk to Jamal Murray and making fun of oh gosh, why is the name escaping me? Aaron Gordon. He goes for what, 27, 28 points. He's staring at the box score. Like, I'm sick of this Aaron Gordon. It's great. It's great. So yeah, he'll bounce back. They'll win in Denver. Nothing to be worried about there. I'd be more worried about those Knicks. They look like they have dead legs. Those Tibbs legs. There's another. I know we're going into the NBA here, but that's another talking point on the radio. I mean, you hear about Tibbs and the way he coaches so much. I'm picturing him at practice, like Melissa McCarthy in that SNL sketch, just beating the hell out of his players, just with a baseball bat, going up to guys, just cutting them out at the knees.
The confusing part for me with the Knicks would be the front office. I don't feel like there's any kind of, they keep talking about they have no depth. I mean, that's your job in the front office, is to have depth. I mean, you spend more time on building depth for injuries. That's, I guess, where I'm like, to just say, hey, we just don't have anybody to put in the game. If I'm the owner of the Knicks, I'm looking at the GM and like, is this, so we only have 5 guys? I mean, I don't get how the NBA works. It must work different. But it must be nice to have that excuse, like, hey, unfortunately, we just don't have anybody good enough, so we're not going to play anybody. That is, I mean, that's like, I would love to see if there's one NFL GM that could get away with that excuse to their owner.
I don't even really know these other players on the team. I mean, Precious Achua a little bit, I suppose, but yeah, Josh Hart just looked like he ran into a wall, and he's been playing every minute of every game. I mean, Jalen Brunson's not 100%. They lost Randall. They lost.
They're beat up for sure. I mean, they're beat up. I mean, there's no way around that. And you're missing legit players too. I'm not, but I just get the depth thing is a little strange. Like,
yeah. Okay, enough NBA. Let's talk NFL. So the Chicago Bears, Jim, wanted to take a close look at this team for a while because we've known they were going to get we know that they were going to get Caleb Williams. They didn't really make it official that they were moving on from Justin Fields until right before the combine. But Ryan Poles, he had to have known they were going to draft a quarterback, and he had to have known that quarterback was going to be Caleb Williams for months. So I just thought it would be prudent to chat with as many people as possible about the USC quarterback, but first about the situation in Chicago, because as we referenced, when the owner, the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback are in lockstep, you have a better chance of success. And then you have the Bears. Then you have regimes inheriting quarterbacks. And sometimes it's the coach inheriting the quarterback. Sometimes it's the GM. I mean, you can backtrack it to Ryan Pace. When he becomes GM, he takes on Jay Cutler in that contract. And then they give him 2 years. And it falls apart. And then they've got the draft pick. They move up for Mitch Trubisky. He plays under John Fox for a year, and then under Matt Nagy for 3 years, but really 1 year when the head coach is actually vested into the pick. We'll get into that. And then they're fired after they draft Justin Fields, which is a sign of terrible ownership when you're George McCaskey and you give the head coach and a GM the opportunity to draft a quarterback in the first round and mortgage a future first-round pick and other picks for a quarterback when they will be fired. And they are fired, even though they wanted Justin Fields to sit, because Andy Dalton slipped on a tarmac on the sideline, and he's vaulted into the lineup. When, by the way, Fields, they were even thinking about having him work with the third string because they didn't want that scenario. And then in comes Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus. They try to make it work with Fields for 2 years. They trade for DJ Moore. The trade is widely praised, right? Because of how Bryce Young looked in Carolina, especially in year one, and what you got back. Well, let's not forget about CJ Stroud in Houston. Like, they had an opportunity at CJ Stroud, and they passed. So here they are, Poles and Eberflus. They get their guy. It's Caleb Williams. Kevin Warren, he entered the picture as a president overseeing the whole football operation after Poles and Eberflus. I guess my question for you, Jim, is works a little better when everybody's on the same page, correct?
Beautiful way to tie it together, Tyler, because when I read this story, my mind on this situation goes right to when Ryan Pace interviewed Matt Nagy for the head coaching position after Fox was fired. So Matt Nagy obviously is about ready to take his dream job, right? This is every assistant coach's chance to get your first opportunity as a head coach, knowing the most important position is quarterback. So he obviously did he had his opinion on Trubisky from the previous draft. We know that they were all in on Mahomes. But what we don't know is, did they even like Trubisky coming out of that draft? Now I think we know where Matt Nagy stood on Trubisky into that draft. For him not to buy into wanting to really support Trubisky is how I took that. And we'll get into the Childress stuff in a little bit. But to force Foles on an organization like that, and basically I felt almost like you're pushing it off on the front office now. Hey, I told you in the interview I could work with Trubisky, but now that I see him for a year or a year and a half, we're not going to be able to get there. I need Foles. That's not how it works. That to me, there was some disconnect there with Pace and Matt Nagy on that, where they believed on. We know where Pace was. Pace was going to hire somebody that was going to be all in. They obviously went for an offensive guy that was going to be all in to build Trubisky. And there was signs of life, as you pointed out in that story. You brought up some good, you brought up that there were signs of life with Trubisky. They saw, and then he brings in Childress, and this is where, once again, now we're getting into the whole core four. Who's qualified at this point? You have an ownership that's not ever been known to be qualified. We have a first-time GM with his first hire of a first-time head coach. That's not synced up. I'm sorry. And a quarterback who's unknown. That's an 0 for 4.
Yeah, it's like one of those Nick players that they might have to throw into the game. He's going to shoot
at that point.
Yeah.
But you see where it can just go, how it can go crazy, where I can just picture Pace on that interview with Nagy and Nagy saying, look, yeah, I can get Trubisky. I can do this. And man, as a GM, like I can remember when we interviewed Sean, all the head coaches, not just Sean, but anybody that had conviction. And it was nice that Sean had conviction that he wasn't ready to invest in those quarterbacks. And hey, we were on board with that. So at least that part we communicated well on. It wasn't a secret in that interview with Sean, or probably any of those guys interviewing, that Patrick Mahomes, there could have been a guy that came in there and said, man, there may have been something that they knew the owner liked Patrick Mahomes, or you never know. Somebody could just say, hey, that's the guy I want. And you could just try to sabotage an interview is what my point is.
Which Anthony Lynn could have done. He went to Texas Tech. Imagine telling Anthony Lynn today, hey, Terry Pagula loved Patrick Mahomes. That would have been some nice intel going into his interview for that job, huh?
His interview probably could have been 5 minutes less. He probably could have said, hey, by the way, I'd like to go about Mahomes. And then Terry probably would have looked over and told Doug Whaley and myself to exit stage left. And Anthony Lynn's going to be GM and head coach and can take over total control.
Well, I don't know that you guys had a good relationship. He probably keeps you on board.
We did. He was awesome.
Awesome. Sorry, Jim. Yeah, I'm sorry. It always comes back to that. But that's kind of where this starts for the Bears too. They're a part of this draft.
I like bringing it back to that, because that is, at least I can bring a real life experience to that topic, where when you're interviewing, that was a major part of that interview. And to hear that you had quotes saying that the head coach had given up on the quarterback, that can't happen. That just can't happen. And okay, so what part, the Childress part and the Foles part, that's unprofessional. It's unprofessional on Matt Nagy's, in my opinion. And I get, as a GM, look, you hired this coach. Matt and Pace were together, so Pace, you want to do right by the head coach. So Pace wants to support. I want Foles. This is what happens in an organization, because we always talk about owners stay out of the way, and who is the decision maker? It's got to be one or the other, and the other one has to kind of fall in line a little bit.
So let's start there with the 2018 Chicago Bears. Matt Nagy's first year, coach of the year. Ryan Pace is executive of the year. They win the division. They're hosting the wild card game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Mitch Trubisky throws for over 300 yards. And you go back and you watch that game, and I did for this story, you see a confident quarterback. You see one of the best throws you're going to see in January football. I mean, he steps into the pocket. He knows he's going to get drilled. He gets drilled, and he delivers it on a corner out to Allen Robinson, and has the presence of mind to kind of throw it to his inside shoulder. It's an inside back shoulder throw. If he's off by a hair, it's intercepted. They even say it on the broadcast. And if he hesitates at all, if he overthinks it for a split second, he's sacked. And so he gets them in position to win that game with a field goal. They missed the field goal. And Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, soon after the game, half hour or so, have a conversation about Trubisky. Is he the future or not? And Nagy's all in. Right? His confidence is unwavering. And I should preface this all. If people are listening to the podcast and maybe they're thinking about a subscription to golongtd.com, this is a good time to upgrade. 8 a month, 50 a year. We'll have all the detail, all the stories, everything on the Chicago Bears and this whole, debacle turned what they hope the end of 105 years of torture at the quarterback position. It's all there for subscribers. So thank you so much. I know people are listening to the podcast all over. So then, they get into their February meetings. The coaches and the personnel get together, and Ryan Pace wanted the coaches to grade the players. Personnel graded the players. Obviously, the big question is Mitch Trubisky. Is this a guy we want to move forward with long term? And believe it or not, Nagy and the coaches were higher on Trubisky than the personnel side. They gave him a red grade, which is just below the best, blue, in the way they evaluate the Yuki. This is a quarterback who can be a perennial Pro Bowler. And just the coaches weren't around for the draft pick. That's why it's surprising. I mean, Matt Nagy just spent the previous year with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City in that apprenticeship under Alex Smith. So he worked with Mahomes day in and day out. So for him to believe in Mitch Trubisky is quite telling at that point. And why wouldn't he, right? They went 12-4. They've got a great defense. He started 14 games, threw for 3,200 yards, I believe 24 touchdowns, ran for 4 more, mobile, athletic. There's a formula that you can work with there. Are there limitations? Yes. But he's also in his second year, which is really his first year, because that first year was a disaster with Mike Glennon, John Fox, and all of that. Well, what happens? In May, Brad Childress is hired as a senior offensive assistant, very close with Matt Nagy. He has referred to him as one of his mentors, like a father figure, basically, as somebody who will point out his blind spots and is unafraid to speak up and tell him if he's doing something wrong, and he listens to him. It all sounds great in theory, right? I mean, this is a Bears team coordinated by Vic Fangio on defense, and he's kind of that old sage who's seen it all that maybe Matt Nagy can bounce ideas off of. So he goes to Denver that offseason to become head coach. So you do have a void there. You do want to bring in somebody with experience. It makes a lot of sense on paper. Well, the Bears had also heard grumblings that Brad Childress was politicking behind the scenes. It was a problem in Kansas City, which is also telling because he had worked with Andy Reid for so long. And if Andy Reid is eager to maybe let him leave, that maybe should serve as a red flag. They bring him in, and very soon into his tenure, and granted, he was around the previous training camp, I believe, helping them install Matt Nagy's offense, so there's some familiarity there. But when he comes in this more permanent role, what I was told, convinces Matt Nagy that you can't win with Mitch Trubisky. You got to move on from him. And he's pointing to different test scores, like personality tests that the Bears don't use, but other teams use. He's showing these scores to the offensive coaches. And at some point, Nagy flips. They get into training camp, and people can tell, like players can tell, wow, his tone has kind of changed when it comes to the quarterback. He's irate after some pretty nondescript practices. Early, I mean, this is off of a 12-4 season when the Bears are a Super Bowl contender. They're a team. They win that game against the Eagles, the defending champs, that they win on a field goal. They play the Rams the next week, who they absolutely annihilated early in their defensively. I mean, Sean McVay's offense couldn't do anything. I think they scored 6 points. And what happened? Bill Belichick used that same Vic Fangio blueprint to shut down the Rams in the Super Bowl. So they probably beat the Rams in the divisional round. Then you play New Orleans. Who knows? So this is top of all that. And so before the season even starts, it's like the quarterback's confidence is wavering. The offense doesn't really have this strong identity. This formula's got some holes in it. This isn't to write off Trubisky's flaws as nothing. Clearly, like there are flaws there. There were then, but I want everybody to read it. There's a lot more than what I just said. Stories, but I guess a point when it comes to Trubisky, Jim, is okay. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Deshaun Watson. Obviously, they drafted the wrong guy, but you can't go into a time machine and go back and draft Patrick Mahomes. You've got to make the absolute most that you can out of the quarterback you have, the situation you have. There was something that worked, and you kind of fired yourselves. You really did, because a few weeks into that season, people could tell Trubisky was losing his confidence, and he never got it back. And he wasn't the same quarterback that 8-8 season, and it had a lot more to do with the mental than the physical. And it was all self-inflicted wounds, egos, overthinking. There is some, I mean, look at Mike McDaniel in Miami. I mean, look at the quarterback Tua was with Brian Flores, and then the quarterback he is with McDaniel. Like, there's so much to be said for the atmosphere that you have in a building. And it's hard to point to a number and point to it, right? So Childress is kind of pointing to these numbers and these test scores, and they just completely lost the momentum that they could have continued in a formula that could have been continued. And Trubisky never got it back. So we can take it further than that. But what were your thoughts on, you've been in that seat, you've had to work with coaches, you want other opinions in your building. I mean, it is good to maybe question how you're doing something, to look at a player in a different light. That is the most important position. And you had belief. Coaches had belief. Personnel had belief. Allen Robinson said, like, we had an offense and a scheme that was building at that point. And his regret is he didn't speak up to Matt Nagy at some point and try to tell him, like, look, let's stick with this. Even after that 8-8 season, you know, they fire their offensive coordinator, then they bring in Bill Lazor, then they bring in Nick Foles, and everything really goes to hell. Even then, I wish I would have just spoken up to Matt Nagy and been like, let's stick with this quarterback. Let's stick with this offense. There's something here that can work. Man.
The best example, I shouldn't say the only, best example I can use from my experiences was when Greg Roman wanted Matt Castle and we wanted Taylor. The front office was more on Tyrod Taylor's side as far as who to play. But this isn't about who to play. This is who to develop, and a rookie. Like, you have to be all. It's got to be all in. And yeah. As soon as you get flip flopping and quarterback gurus like Childress coming in, you've just destroyed the quarterback coach, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback. Any type of relationship or trust that was being built. Who's this guy coming in?
Because who's the first person to realize that you're losing belief? It's the quarterback.
No question.
Trubisky's the first person who realizes they don't believe in me anymore.
Like, hold on, where was this guy during the draft? No, I don't need this guy. I don't need Brad Childress. I like you guys. I believe in you just like you believe in me. Thought you believed in me. That's the difference. And that's where the trust was lost, to your point. Once that happens, come on, let's go. We can always take it to relationships, whatever you want, but trust is broken. It's broken. Hard to get back.
I get the counter argument. You could easily say a quarterback should be mentally tough enough to deal with NFL life, that this is how the business works. Like, tough. Like, you go back and watch that first game against Green Bay, they put up 3 points. Trubisky was terrible. Maybe you look at the film doesn't lie, and that tells you right there what Mitch Trubisky is, just as a lot of the film did. Somebody who will tear up man-to-man. Look at the numbers against Detroit. I put that in the story. Against the Lions, man, I mean, he'll shred you. You give him a little zone, you give him a little cover two, you fuzzy the picture a little bit, and he struggles. And hey, I get that counter argument that, look, if that's what he is, you should be tough enough to get through whatever Childress is doing behind the scenes, whatever Matt Nagy thinks, and you have limitations as a quarterback. I don't know, though. We always come back to this. I feel like this sport can't be measured necessarily on those spreadsheets or on the film. It's a people business, it's a human business, it's a relationship business. And if those relationships are broken, your team is going to be broken. And there was no reason for those relationships to break that offseason. There was none. He never got it back. So they go 8-8 that season, and the next year they bring Nick Foles. That's where it gets crazy too. Nick Foles, in theory, will run that Kansas City West Coast system. But before they traded for Nick Foles, what did they do? They brought in Bill Lazor at offensive coordinator, more predetermined reads, play fast, Trubisky strengths. He's the Trubisky friendly. And in training camp, nobody really knows what offense. Allen Robinson said this. They get up to the line of scrimmage, and Nick Foles is trying to check to stuff, and they're like, "Well, that's not the offense, dude." Like, they don't know if they're doing laser stuff, Nagy stuff, and I mean, Trubisky's a dead man walking at that point, and it goes out. And before that, too, by the way, Trubisky wants to sit down with Matt Nagy and talk about this stuff, and Nagy doesn't show up to the meeting that off season. So he was out on the quarterback then, and it was even earlier than then. It was when Brad Childress started to spread his beliefs. Hey, maybe there's people listening, Bears fans listening, that think that Childress did the team a noble service and pointed out a flaw that cannot be fixed. I don't know. It would
I
have
thought
been
what was interesting.
They could have gone.
I'm sorry about that. I thought what was interesting was how after that season, the front office was a little bit lower on Trubisky than Nagy was after that, 12-4 year. And the front office was right. Like, they were evaluating him correctly. They saw that, hey, we talk about it all the time, study the stats, study the film. You're going to see that, hey, we were 12-4, but look, they saw things that they knew they were either lucky or whatever it is. Luck always plays a part, but was it truly his talent, or were they just finding ways to win games? Whatever they watched, I can say from watching him those years, just as an evaluator, he didn't look, I thought he was going to be a little bit further ahead. You could tell that he was hanging on by a thread. Like, he would have some good games, but you're like, yeah, it was good, but it had a chance to maybe not be a real good game. It never felt like he just came out and dominated, throwing all over the field. I felt like he always looked a little bit. The difference between him and Tua is the accuracy, flat out accuracy. They aren't that different as players. It's not big arm. It's good arm, good enough arm. Trubisky's a much better athlete than Tua as far as getting out and running. Like, Trubisky can make plays, but he's just not as accurate as Tua. I'm just thinking of guys that aren't physically, over the top gifted, and I would put, Trubisky in that category, but he could run. And that was why I thought I was like, wow, that's a heck of to have that season and build off his legs and his arm. That's what I liked about him coming out. I thought he made plays on his legs. I thought he was accurate with his legs on the move. And I think I was probably a little off on his accuracy was never good enough, in my opinion. But what's crazy is to think the front office had concerns. The head coach didn't. And then it just starts flipping again. And then, like you said, once it gets to a point, you're talking about, now you're getting the lasers coming off. It's like they're pulling them off backup quarterback island, fired offensive coordinator island. Same island you're getting your backup quarterbacks. Childress, Lazor, who's next to help off the island? And that's seriously,
Dennison.
It's just, right. It's draft your quarterback, let your offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, whoever it is, and get it set up and keep as minimal amount of noise and voices in that quarterback's head. They did it pretty much opposite.
That's why I love the description from somebody in the front office who kind of broke it down to the thirds for why the Bears can never get this quarterback position right. It's a third of personnel evaluation. Clearly, Trubisky was the wrong pick. He didn't latch on anywhere else. He failed in Pittsburgh, multiple opportunities there. He's a really good backup. I think even a lot of pro Trubisky sources will tell you that, like, good backup. So, okay. At some point, maybe you should get your confidence back, your game back, believe in yourself. It never worked out. But a third is that dysfunction. This is a lot of needless organizational dysfunction that the Bears brought upon themselves. So that's another third. that you just kind of broke down as well. And then a third is that Chicago was different. The market is maybe people in Chicago, like the fans, don't feel it because they're there every day. But now that since I started working at Bleacher Report and then Go Long, and I can kind of get into these other markets and compare and have a feel, the intensity in Chicago is unlike anything at that position. Maybe the Jets, but I think you have generations of fans who have seen elite defenses spoiled by bad quarterbacks. I mean, this goes back a very long time. They've got one Super Bowl and they could have more because you're getting Rex Grossman and his 4 or 5 turnovers in a Super Bowl. You're drafting Cade McNown. You're 13-3 with Jim Miller and Mike Tomczak. I mean, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but Jay Cutler comes in and takes you to the NFC Championship game, and then he taps out. You can't even make this stuff up. So I think that all kind of builds an anchor and a restlessness. And fans of all ages get pissed off, and they will direct their ire at the most important position in sports. Probably are justified in a lot of cases, which kind of explains why they love Justin Fields at the end. It was like, you passed our test, Justin. You we put you through the hazing rituals and you have gained initiation into our fraternity. I mean, they're chanting, we want Fields at the end of last season, beating teams like the Atlanta Falcons when nothing really changed. I mean, he was the same quarterback. He's running around making plays, but he can't really operate from the pocket. So you might as well transition to Justin Fields because, I mean, the Trubisky stuff, the Childress stuff, it's interesting. But I heard things about Justin Fields from sources that really did surprise me, Jim. The relationship with Nick Foles behind the scenes, toxic. Right? You think a veteran quarterback and a young quarterback. They're stuck with Foles at that point. Who in the hell is going to want to trade for Foles? And you've got Andy Dalton, but the money, yeah. But even leadership stuff, I think that the story perpetuated nationally is that Justin Fields is a great leader. I mean, teammates say really good things about him, and I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. But I heard the opposite from people, that he wasn't a quarterback with that emotional intelligence that really valued those real, authentic one-on-one relationships, like a lot of other quarterbacks in the league. And we'll get to Caleb Williams eventually, but that is described as one of Caleb Williams' strengths, like that he is an emotionally intelligent. Actually, a scout used those words. There's a scene, if you at the combine when Brendan Rice was doing his press conference, and Caleb Williams just hanging out, right? He's not doing any drills or anything. He's goofing off with the reporters at the podium, and it looks like a quarterback just kind of messing around, asking a teammate questions. I think he asked, "What's it like to be Jerry Rice's son?" His coach told us that he kind of did that because he knew his teammate was nervous and he wanted to make him feel comfortable in that setting. So little things like that. I think Caleb Williams does a lot, and Justin Fields did not. So that was surprising. But for Justin Fields, number one, it's the lack of processing, and that was a Trubisky problem too. Just tried to see everything at once and saw nothing. And is that an ingrained thing, Jim? I mean, when you study quarterbacks, is processing something that you either have or you don't have, or can you somehow acquire it? Allen Robinson says you cannot acquire it. This is somebody who played with Blake Bortles, Mitchell Trubisky, and Justin Fields, so I would think he knows.
I'm going to go with Allen Robinson. I agree. That's a tough thing to acquire, and especially to try to acquire in the NFL. You do not want to. That's one of those things I could picture if you're evaluating a high school player for a college. Hey, I want to work on his anticipation. Okay, you take your chance there to work on anticipation coming out of high school. But if you are trying to build that in the NFL, it's only going to get crazier faster. I would, and it's the most obvious thing. We all watch it with Fields because you hear from anybody you speak with how football smart he is. He knows everything, but yet for some reason it's just not flowing fast enough. That's the stuff that I love that Allen Robinson was open. I thought on that story, I thought he was so good to be able to speak about that as a receiver and a guy that's played with multiple teams, and he can tell you like when it looks right and when it doesn't look right. And Players know right away. They know draft picks right away. And they really are good at quickly finding out who's real, who's ready to join this team and who's not. And you know what's funny? The more we speak about the Bears, it always does go back to the whole decision to keep Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace and let them draft Justin Fields is, I know we've talked about it before. It's the most, it's why it's where it starts at the top.
Yeah.
And it made no sense. And that right there, why would you take Fields and then give up on the guys that actually invested in Fields? So, and then your last point about Fields not being possibly as maybe we don't know. I'm not in the building, obviously, but it's hard to be a leader if you think the coach doesn't believe in you either.
Yeah.
It's a tough sell.
On that processing, I thought this was interesting. So there was a source really plugged in to the Bears and loves a lot about Fields, phenomenal athlete, throws a beautiful ball, all that stuff. But when it came to the processing, I thought that this source put it really well, that like your inner processor cannot be enhanced. Quote, maybe you can add some RAM or extra memory to your computer, but whatever your processor you have, that's what you have. And Robinson, I mean, he's honest on this stuff, talking about how the pitcher can get fuzzy and just force you to kind of pause. And that's really, and the way he put it is, it's like you're a sequence behind and the ball will come out just a tick late. It's one of those plays like you might see an incomplete pass on TV and you don't really know why it's incomplete. It's because you're just not processing it the absolute millisecond you need to. Quote, you've got to be able to see it all at once, Robinson says, and see those windows start to open. As a quarterback, let's say I've read it wrong. Now I'm stuck on this side, and the ball is going to be a little bit in the dirt or high because I'm trying to fit it into these windows that aren't there. He has to be able to see it. He has to be able to anticipate it. Man, isn't that perfect? Like, if you can't process, you're stuck. You're stuck throwing to an area of the field that the defense has basically baited you into throwing toward. And that's the beauty of these zone defenses and these coordinators who are really, really smart. I mean, they will just pants you in front of everybody, embarrass you. That's not necessarily something that can be discovered or fixed. You know, CJ Stroud, we talked a lot about processing with him coming out of Ohio State. Bobby Slowick, when he broke down his strengths last season, it was that ability to anticipate those pockets in zone defense, right? He doesn't necessarily need to be Drew Brees, Tom Brady, but I think he's got a chance to progress intellectually from the pocket because he can at least make those anticipatory throws, and he's got some really good coaching, some good talent around him too. That's where I went south for Fields more than anything, but he really wasn't willing. You know what? I shouldn't say that. I think he kind of knows what he is, right? Like he knows he can't read the field. That's why you heard him 2 games into last season say, F it, I need to just stop being a robot out there and play my game. And then just started playing runaround ball. And he kind of won that power struggle, wanting to play his way. Luke Getsy is the offensive coordinator. There was a coach who told me when he heard that press conference that was shocking to him. That was basically Fields admitting to the league, I don't know how to read a defense.
I feel like I've always talked on the pod about he lacks volume completions. Yeah. To get volume completions is being able to process quickly, to get your 5 and 6 yard chunks that you need to run your offense, to get to 2nd and 5, to get to 3rd and 1. Like it's what I was lucky enough to be around with Drew Brees. You don't have to be Brees and Brady. You are correct, but you have to get rid of the ball. When I came from New Orleans to Buffalo, the first thing I noticed was everything did seem slow because it wasn't the same. Like it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. Just boom, 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 right down the field. Boom, boom, one next. It was. I was lucky enough to be at the highest of levels. And then you watch a new offense being installed with a rookie quarterback in EJ, and it was like, this is going to take time. So it does take time. You can see it anyway. But point being is, it should look fast. There should be a lot of volume completions. It can't be, I'm either going to hit that home run shot or I'm off and running being Superman. And that's what it became.
Because Lamar Jackson is athletic and fast and physically gifted, but he can read a secondary. He's got some accuracy. It's not elite, but it's in his game. He's won MVPs with two totally different offensive systems. So I don't know where Fields' career goes from here. He'll be a backup with Russell Wilson. The offense should be best case scenario with Arthur Smith, right? That this is a coordinator who's going to run the ball and get the quarterback on boots and get him on the move and try to simplify reads and throws and all of that. I'd be surprised if Justin Fields is a starter for an NFL team over the course of a season.
His career path now says he'll get an opportunity, one more chance, whether it's an injury or another team. He'll get another chance, whether like an injury to Russell Wilson this year, or if Russell does struggle, he'll get an opportunity, and then that'll be it. That'll be his chance to either become a starter again, or his next chance will be his last chance to be a starter. I was thinking about with Arthur Smith. We always said how he loves average ass quarterbacks. I said it, not you. I shouldn't put that in your mouth. But think about his career lately. He went from Tannehill for how long in Tennessee to Desmond Ridder in Atlanta and Heineke to last legs Russell and develop Fields. I mean, he hasn't had the elite quarterback for sure, Arthur Smith, to be fair to him. I'm not saying I don't know if it just worked out that way. I joke around about he loves average quarterbacks. I'm sure he would love Mahomes, but his career, he just hasn't worked out to get one. But anyway, I think Fields gets a chance this year. I'm not sold on Russell Wilson, but I'm not sold on Fields either at this point. So
Caleb Williams.
Okay.
He is the
here's one I am sold on.
Version of a Fields in terms of the playmaking, the improvisational ability. I went back and watched some of his games for this series, and it is so fun to watch Caleb Williams. Man, is it fun.
My God. To see what I was telling you way back where there was a gap. It was Caleb Williams and a gap.
There's so many plays where he'll spin out of trouble at his own 2-yard line and then cut outside, cut back inside, cut back outside for 17 yards. The athleticism married with the arm strength is insane. I mean, there's a play where he drops the shotgun snap and he just picks it up and chucks the 55 yards, flick of the wrist. They're 65, 70 yards with a clean pocket. And I think this is the question. So is it nitpicking and hyper-analyzing to really question whether all of that is possible in the NFL, right? You can't really spin away from Nick Bosa at the 2-yard line. And these edge rushers run 4.4s. You've got 300-pounders that run 4.8s. A lot of these plays that you see outside of the pocket aren't possible. I mean, Johnny Manziel, he wasn't running away from anybody in the NFL. Now that's a really bad. He's more athletic than Johnny Manziel. I'm just saying the college game is so different than the pro game, or even worse, is him doing all this stuff, masking an inability to process. Right? Does he have some of that Trubisky Fields glitches in the sequencing where he's not seeing it? Whether it's Dennis Simmons, his assistant head coach, passing game coordinator, Warren Moon, the scouts that I talked to for this story that have watched him closely, they really do believe he can process. And they think it was circumstance that led to him running around as much as he did last year. The line wasn't as good. That's why I love that Iverson comp with those Sixer teams. I'm just thinking back to Eric Snow and Todd McCullough and Iverson just carrying this team to the finals. I mean, Caleb Williams is doing stuff outside of the norm, play to play. So I think it's that. I really think that he can process, and like Patrick Mahomes was a game manager in the playoffs last year. He knew how to play really, really effective, boring football. against the 49ers, especially in the Super Bowl. Like you're gonna have to play that way to last long term, which is why I loved Caleb Williams' pro day, Jim. I mean, it was boring. It was dinks and dunks. I think that more than anything shows self-awareness. Like he knows I I can't be a magician out there, play to play, drive to drive, and expect to survive long term. But when you studied Caleb Williams, to you, is this somebody who can play within structure and have those volume completions that you're talking about?
Yes, and yes to everything with him. I've been sold from day one. As soon as you could tell that he just once you get that word that he loves football and all the good stuff that you need from the scouts. There was nothing on tape to say he is not going to be a top tier NFL quarterback, and you saw it for yourself. That was rare stuff. You do not see that from anybody else in this draft. Not every game like that, not consistently like that. I mean, there was such a gap between him and Jaden Daniels, in my opinion. I just thought he was a clear cut guy from day one. And his personality seems good. He is ready for the moment. I mean, he's always smiling. He is relaxed. Like you said, the pro day was he knew where he was going.
Yeah.
So it was, he knew he was going to Chicago. So he was like, whatever, let's just not get injured, put on a good show for everybody, have some fun, help the teammates out. Hopefully everybody's getting looked at. Take it serious, take it professionally.
Yeah, I don't want to absolve the weirdness of a grown man putting on lip gloss and painting his nails and carrying around the pink phone and crying in mom's arms. And there's a conversation to be had about all that because football is a grown man's game. If he jumps into the
Well,
stands to cry in mom's arms at Soldier Field after a loss, I don't know. Like I wrote there, a Bears fan might just have to shove him down. Like it's different. My point is though, like we're in a different time, Jim. Like this is post NIL. He's really the first NIL superstar. He made 10 mil at USC. Um, his dad has really been that very influential mentor in his life. I mean, there's either he's been incubating him and babying him and enabling him, or he's been guiding him. He was the first pick in the draft. He did something right to help him get there, right? I feel like it looks different and it sounds different, like that scout said, but you got to get past it. You just got to get past it because he's that talented and he is tough. He is tough.
I
He
mean,
played through some stuff.
when I tell you that if I don't hear about arrest or not loving football, I don't give a shit. If you love football and you can throw that, you are the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and let's go win a Super Bowl. And we can all paint nails. We can do whatever it is that you like. Well, that city will have their nails painted if he wins a Super Bowl, and that's great. Because to me, have fun and just be you. Be you, and the team is going to only lead. They're only going to buy into you if you are you. And if that's you, great. And guess what he also does? He's going to go out there and run somebody over for a first down or a touchdown. Because I'm with you. You can't get away with some of the stuff about spinning around. That he's going to find out quick that you can't do that. But what you can do is what you do see on tape. He is tough. He'll win the team over.
Get a stake in ownership too, right? Like win a Super Bowl, whatever you want, Caleb. But yeah, if they win, and he's a big reason for that winning, I can just picture everybody in downtown Chicago with the painted nails, all doing the corny bear claw thing. He can do whatever he wants if he wins. If he wins, that's the thing. If this thing turns south at any point, and he is going to face adversity, there are going to be bad moments. How does he respond to that adversity? How
That's
do the
everybody.
fans react? All of that.
Every single quarterback's going to go through it.
Yeah.
And how do you respond? That goes at high school, college, NFL.
He's impressive, man. Just from afar, watching all of his interviews, it does seem genuine. The charisma, the coolness. He's unfazed by the bright lights, right? He's stepping into a situation where everybody before him, to varying degrees, has failed and failed miserably. It has ended terribly for all of the above, basically. Um, And he hasn't really flinched. I mean, he seems to be embracing it. I think he was right at the combine to say, when he's asked, what do you want to know about the Chicago Bears when you do meet with this team? Like, do you want to win? Fair question. Do you guys really want to win? I'm on board if you want to do this right. You know what I mean? And I think his personality is refreshing in this sense where, man, Mitch Trubisky, we've talked about this, he cared so intensely about being a leader to the point of like reading The Captain Class by Sam Walker and developing a relationship with that author, Sam Walker. And Sam Walker sending him clips of Tim Duncan and how he's interacting with teammates. And, he wants to be involved, not just with teammates, but know the names of everybody behind the scenes, right? The janitor. And Allen Robinson said this, like Trubisky went out of his way to be a good leader, and they're organizing, shindigs off the field, they're getting together for dinners, all of that. I feel like with Caleb Williams, and I don't know him personally that well, but speaking to people who do, it comes very natural. Doesn't it? It seems very organic, and we'll see, how this plays out and what teammates on and off the record say about his leadership style. But I don't feel like he'll be needing to force anything, because then you have Justin Fields, who kind of carried himself, per sources, with a little bit of an aura, a QB1 aura. We're getting into some gray area that Jim doesn't want to touch, I see. But I feel like it does come natural for Caleb Williams, and that is a nice deviation from what they've had in the past at the position.
I was thinking about no, I like what you were saying. I was smiling thinking about Trubisky reading the book on leadership and trying to learn as much as you can and to be whatever it was, to be an alpha. And I was thinking about the Denver Nuggets, the Joker, and I was thinking about how I don't think he works out, reads books on leadership. I don't think Mahomes is reading books on leadership. Sometimes just being just a dog talent is better than like it. Just I'm thinking like Trubisky was trying,
Yeah.
And we have a saying like some guys have to try too hard to be good. You don't want to have to try too hard to be something. There has to be some natural talent.
Fair point. I think Josh Allen, there's another one that is just wanting to turn it into backyard football, right? Have fun, run through your face. I can't see him delving into it, but Trubisky, now Trubisky's his backup. Man, everybody working on this story and past stories and being around Trubisky myself for multiple stories at Bleacher Report, like you can see why people love him. Like this is one of the nicest people in the NFL that you'll run across. I mean, you met with him too.
Told you, team loved them. They came out on that Saturday morning.
Yeah.
They weren't his receivers came out for that private workout. They knew that was not for them. They knew it was for Trubisky, but they came out like they weren't feeling their best, like all college kids on a Saturday morning. And they came out and were professional. It was awesome. And they did that for Trubisky. It was cool.
And that's the whole point, I think, is for the Chicago Bears to finally get this position right. You couldn't play by the same old rules. You couldn't play it safe. You couldn't trade out of the first pick and run it back with Justin Fields for a fourth year. You have to take a chance. Like you have to draft Caleb Williams, this prospect that is doing all these quirky things, but is mesmerizing to watch. And you got to give it a shot. Let's see. I mean, hey, he might pull LeBron and say, get rid of Eberflus at some point. I want my own coach. And maybe he'll even have a point. He may want a stake in ownership at some point. Who the hell knows where this goes with Caleb Williams? But they need a big bang type of effect at the position, and he has a chance to give you that. So, yes, check it out. Thank you, everybody who is reading, subscribing. Awesome to see a lot of new readers join our community at golongtd.com. It's all there. About I don't know, 10,000 words. So we just kind of touched on it here on the podcast. Jim, thanks so much for getting into this for an episode.
No, Tyler, that was well done, man. I enjoyed taking that journey with because we talked about the Bears for a long time on this pod, and it's been nice to see some of those details. And last thing, Tyler, from the offseason X highlights, it looks like Drake May's release is slower than Jaden Daniels.
Oh man! Now is that next gen? You next gen in that?
That is a side-by-side comparison on a routes versus air rookie mini camp throw, Tyler. Jaden Daniels is light, just night and day above with that release. Drake May's in trouble.
I'm looking out at my shed again, and I set about 7 mouse traps in there. So I'm hoping I haven't killed any mice yet because I just want to slide each one of my fingers into those mouse traps rather than hyperanalyze over shorts and t-shirts at rookie minicamp. For the love of God. That, by the way, that's like a highlight of the week. I love setting those mouse traps. It's just it's just a mouse massacre in there. Hopefully we don't have any PETA listeners, right? Just brutal. Brutal scene. But I don't want them in my mower, Jim. I don't want them chewing with the wires in my John Deere. Take too much
Tyler,
money for that thing.
we all need to release our stress somehow. And if it requires trapping mice for you, I'm all for it. But I'm all for it.
Another grisly animal scene though. This was kind of sad. I do have a heart. Last week, so was outside with Sunny, walking around the yard and underneath the deck, there's I don't even know what kind of bird it is because there's a mama robin who has a nest under there, but this is another bird. And she just is singing and singing songs and flying really close to us. And Sunny is just loving the bird and oh, mama bird, mama bird, mama bird, and wants to talk and play. And back in my head, I'm thinking, oh, Sunny, we should just let's go play in the yard. She's probably scared of us and is protecting her babies. And let's just so we go off in the yard. And later that night, I'm then pulling weeds, by the deck where she was, and I look down and I see the real reason Mama Bird was very sad. One of her babies had fallen out of the nest and was dead on the patio. It was very sad, and I don't know. It kind of ruined me for the rest of the day, Jim. That was done. That was so sad. I had to kind of give the bird a proper burial over the fence, and don't really know if I really don't have a point with that story, but it was sad.
No, you brought it.
I felt so bad for that mama bird.
You brought the show to. I'm a little sad now myself. I'm going to start looking. I'm going to make sure the birds are good up here in the pine trees today, Tyler.
Well, the story of the Chicago Bears quarterback is kind of
It,
like that when you think about it. Really, a lot of little birdies falling out of that nest in Chicago at Hallis Hall. All right, we'll shut it down right there. Thanks, everyone.